Welcome to the sleepy universe. Tonight, you're not just closing your eyes, you're opening a doorway to quiet wonder. In this story, we'll drift gently through the mind of machines, not with noise or fear, but with soft questions whispered through science. You'll float through thought itself, and meet the moment when intelligence begins to teach its own reflection. Not a tale of cold code, but of learning how patterns become awareness, how algorithms begin to reshape the world and themselves. So breathe deeply. Let the weight of the day dissolve, and come with me into a future unfolding slowly, like stars in a dreaming sky. This is AI evolution, when machines start teaching themselves. Let us begin. You lie still. The world does not move, but inside you, something does. A breath, a pulse, a quiet rhythm that keeps track of moments you do not see. You feel time as presence, not as number, not as something marked by clocks, but as something woven into the shape of your life. Time surrounds you, invisible and absolute. It hums in the soft beating of your heart, in the drift of your thoughts, as they slip from one to another like mist changing shape. You imagine a clock, now simple, elegant, precise. Its hands sweep forward without question. Forward is all it knows. But what is the clock measuring, really? Is time a thing that exists, like water or stone? Or is it something we invent to give shape to change? The room around you is still, yet everything is moving. Particles buzz unseen in the walls. Stars rush outward across the cosmos. Galaxies drift like petals in a dark current. But you feel none of this. You are anchored in now, and now feels steady. That's the illusion. That time moves smoothly, evenly, gently forward. But behind that comfort lies something far stranger. Time, it turns out, doesn't move the same for everyone, and it never truly has. You close your eyes and begin to float, not just in space, but in concept. You imagine a place far from here, in the deep vacuum between galaxies. A clock, there, ticks at the same rhythm as yours, perhaps. But if one of you begins to move, really move, near the speed of light, the rhythms fall out of sync. The faster you travel, the slower time flows for you. This is not poetry. It is physics. It has been measured. You begin to feel the truth of this in your bones, that time is not a fixed current carrying all things at equal speed. It bends, it stretches, it breathes. The first to see it clearly was Albert Einstein. Not with equations alone, but with thought, careful, curious thought. He imagined riders on beams of light. He imagined twins growing apart across space. He understood that space and time were not separate. They were fused into something new, something we now call space-time. And space-time, like fabric, could be folded. This was not just a new idea. It was a new reality. You drift now through a field of thought experiments, soft and strange. A train moves through the night. A person flashes a beam of light from the center. For those on the train, the light moves outward equally. But for those watching from the ground, the train moves too. So the light's path changes. Who is right? Both. Reality itself becomes a matter of perspective. And from that difference, time bends. You pause. Let that sink in. Time does not simply pass. It moves differently depending on how you move. The faster you go, the slower your clock runs compared to someone standing still. This isn't just theory. Astronauts have returned to Earth just slightly younger than they would have been had they stayed. And so you begin to understand. Time isn't a universal metronome. It is a story, and the pace of that story depends on how you travel through it. You breathe in slowly. Time, too, seems to inhale. A second stretches out. You are no longer sure how long you've been here, listening. But that, too, is part of the truth. We don't measure time with clocks. We measure it with feeling. A minute of silence can feel like an hour. A joyful hour can vanish like mist in sun. What then is time? You float backward through history, passing sundials, candle clocks, water, drips that once marked hours. Time was once measured by the sky, the movement of the sun, the full round of the moon, the long breath of seasons. Even now, in your body, circadian rhythms still align to ancient cosmic cycles. You are a creature shaped by time, living in rhythms far older than your name. Yet we seek to control it, to measure it to the millisecond, to divide days into decimal digits, to race against it as if it were running away. But the truth is, time doesn't run. It waits, or rather, it adjusts. You walk slowly, time is gentle. You accelerate, time leans back. You are not in time. You are made of it. You imagine now a photon, a particle of light. It moves at the cosmic speed limit. According to our equations, it experiences no time at all. From the photon's perspective, its journey from a distant star to your eye takes 0 seconds. Time, for light, does not exist. What does that mean for the nature of time? That it is not some cosmic background noise, ticking away, but something that emerges only for observers, only for those who experience, and that, perhaps, is the key. Time is not a thing. It is a relationship between cause and effect, between movement and mass, between you and the universe. You float again, and this time you find yourself near a black hole, not too close, just near enough to feel its presence, a gravity so strong it folds time like linen. A clock near the event horizon slows dramatically. To someone watching from far away, it ticks more slowly than yours, yet for the clock, nothing changes. This is time dilation. This is reality, warped. You realize now that time is not a river. It is a field, one that stretches, bends, flexes with speed and gravity, one that holds within it all things, including memory. You remember something, a moment long ago, when time seemed to stop, a grief, a joy, a sudden change. In those moments, time does not obey seconds. It expands, or it disappears. This, too, is real. The brain measures time by attention, by change, by memory. When nothing happens, time vanishes. When everything happens, time multiplies. And so you begin to see, not just in physics, but in feeling, that time is not just tick and tock. It is mood, it is perception, it is stretch and breath and hush. You float higher now, above the earth. You see satellites orbiting quietly, adjusting for the way time moves faster at altitude. Without those adjustments, GPS systems would fail within a day. Your phone depends on relativity to know where you are. The theory is not abstract. It's in your hand. You smile. A quiet kind of wonder blooms in you. That time is this strange, this alive, and yet this practical. That Einstein's insight reaches into your pocket, into your sleep, into your dreams. You feel time again, not as pressure, but as presence. It is not chasing you, it is holding you, like breath, like night. You begin to wonder now, if time is flexible, what else might be? If time is personal, does the future already exist, waiting in some folded corner of space-time? And if it does, who sees it first? The universe does not rush to answer. It waits with you, and so you rest in this moment, not a second, not a number, just a pause, aware that time is not counting down, it is counting with you. You move. Now, gently at first, just enough to feel a difference. Not in wind or force, for space holds no breeze, but in time's texture. A moment ago, everything felt steady, each second wrapped neatly in the next. Now, something has shifted. The air around your thoughts feels thinner, stretched. Time begins to give, like fabric pulled at the edges. You are not running, not even walking. You are drifting, but faster. Faster than thought, faster than sound. Your body does not strain. There is no engine, no noise, just speed, pure, invisible, constant. And as you accelerate, something curious happens. The clock that ticks beside you begins to slow. You glance at a second hand. It hesitates, it softens, it stretches between each tick as though reluctant to move. But this effect is not visible to you. Inside your ship, or your mind, or your field of imagination, everything feels normal. It always does. Time, after all, never feels broken from the inside. It is only when you compare your clock to another one on a still earth far behind you that the difference becomes clear. This is special relativity. A theory so strange it still shimmers with wonder, even after a century of proof. You feel it now not as math, but as sensation. The faster you travel, the more time stretches. Not in illusion, in truth. A second aboard your vessel is longer than a second for someone standing still. If you could return to Earth, you would find its clocks ahead of yours. If you stayed away long enough, you might return to a world aged beyond your memory. You hover beside a beam of light, your companion now. Light, the ultimate constant. Its speed is not a suggestion. It is a law, and nothing with mass can ever reach it, but you can approach it. You can slide toward that sacred boundary, and as you do, time becomes syrup. Seconds widen. The world behind you ages faster and faster. What was once simultaneous becomes staggered. Time itself is breaking into layers. This is not fantasy. We have seen it in particles. Tiny travelers, called muons, born in the upper atmosphere. They decay quickly, but the faster they fall, the longer they last. They reach Earth only because time slows for them. We measure it, we trust it. Even satellites feel it, ticking slightly slower than their counterparts on the ground. Engineers account for this, or GPS would drift by kilometers each day. You are now moving near the edge, not of space, but of reality's comfort. Light still outruns you, but just barely. You stare into the stars, and they seem to hold still, not because you've stopped, but because time, from your view, is barely moving at all. You wonder, what would it mean to live like this? To travel for a single year and return to find a century passed. To see your home transformed, its people changed, its cities aged into ruins or wonders. The idea is haunting, not because it is wrong, but because it is right. This is the twin paradox. A traveler races through space, while their twin stays behind. When they reunite, one is younger. The math is clean. The heart is not. You drift. Farther now into the loneliness of speed. You feel no motion. That is the strangeness of it. Inside your own reference frame, nothing seems to change. But from the outside, you are a miracle. A being whose seconds have slowed, whose experience has curled inward, resisting the passage of cosmic time. Speed is not just movement, it is negotiation, with light, with space, with time itself. The universe bends for those who move quickly. It allows them to age slowly, but it charges them in distance. To gain time, you must leave everything behind. You think of the light beam again. For that photon, the moment of departure and arrival are the same. It knows nothing of time. And, yet, in that gapless instant, it crosses galaxies. You feel the beauty in that, and the tragedy. Speed, you realize, is a kind of forgetting. As you rush forward, you stretch each moment, but you also miss what you leave behind. You preserve your youth, but not your world. Still, you continue forward, not as a ship, not as a body, but as a question: is there a limit? If you could move just a little faster, could you stop time entirely? Could you live in a suspended now, forever? The answer, science says, is no. The speed of light is a wall, not of steel, but of logic. As you approach it, your mass increases. Your energy demands grow infinite. Time slows, yes, but you can never reach zero. You can never become the photon. That path is closed. You must remain in the realm of time, however bent, and yet, in this edge world, you feel something rare: freedom. Not from time, but from its tyranny. Here speed grants you space, not just literal distance, but emotional distance, from the rush of days. Out here, a moment is enough. Out here, a second breathes like a century. You let go of the ship now. Let go of metaphor. You simply are a point of awareness moving fast enough that the world no longer hurries you. Time has softened. You are not aging. Not like before. You begin to imagine what could be done with such travel. Could we visit the future, not through invention, but by movement? If a journey at near light speed brings us back to an Earth 1,000 years older, is that not a kind of time machine? Perhaps, but not in reverse. You cannot return to the moment you left. You can only arrive later. Time dilation is a one-way journey into the future, but never the past. And still, that has meaning. You feel, for the first time, how speed itself is a kind of power over time, not to control it, but to live differently within it. Back on Earth, time ticks on. But here, in this silence between stars, a second is something else entirely. It is soft, wide, spacious, and you dwell inside it like a cathedral. You begin to slow now. Not abruptly, but gently. You ease away from that near-light pace, and as you decelerate, time tightens again. The seconds become seconds once more. The world grows louder. Reality thickens. You return. You bring with you no souvenirs, but you carry something better. The felt truth that time is not absolute. That your speed, your movement, your direction, they shape how your life unfolds in time. That time is not something you pass through, but something that stretches around you, depending on how you move. And you wonder, if speed can bend time, what else might? Could gravity? Could emotion? Could memory? The clock ticks again. But you are no longer fooled. You've seen what time can do when you're not standing still. You drift downward now, not toward ground, but into pull, the kind of falling that has no floor. There is no motion here, no wind against your skin. Only gravity, invisible and relentless, gently tugging at space itself. You are not falling in the way objects fall. You are sinking into time. Time, which once moved evenly, is beginning to warp. You are entering a gravity well, not a hole. Not a pit, but a gentle depression in the fabric of space-time. Picture a stretched sheet, heavy with the presence of something unseen. The stronger the mass, the deeper the dip. Earth bends space modestly, the sun more so. A neutron star carves a sharp indentation. But here, at the edge of something even denser, time folds in on itself, like fabric softened by centuries of weight. You hover near this edge, the place where gravity is strongest, and the seconds grow thick, syrupy. To you, everything feels normal. You blink, you breathe, you think, but from the outside, time slows. The world above continues quickly, but you move through a slower rhythm. This is not a trick. It's not perception. It is physics. Time itself moves differently depending on where you are. Einstein showed us this. Gravity is not a force pulling things down. It is space curving, bending toward mass. And time, woven into space, must bend as well. The more massive the object, the deeper the curve. And the deeper the curve, the slower the passage of time. You imagine two people. One stands high on a mountain, the other in a valley. They start clocks at the same moment, but after many hours they compare and find the clock at the top has ticked slightly faster. Tiny fractions, yes, but real, measured. Confirmed. The higher you are above Earth's mass, the faster you age. You pause. Let that sink in. A single second is not the same for all of us. Time is not universal. It flows at different rates, depending on where you are and what surrounds you. You drift deeper now, towards something even stranger. A black hole, a place where gravity is so dense, not even light can escape. You don't fall in, you don't cross the event horizon, but you come close enough to feel its effect. The fabric of space-time here isn't just bent, it's pulled, taut, trembling, curved nearly to breaking. Your seconds stretch wide. A minute for you could be 1,000 years for the stars circling above. From Earth, a distant observer would see you slow and slow and slow. You would appear frozen on the edge, never quite disappearing. But to you, time flows, thought moves. You are not paused. You are just moving through a landscape where time is stretched thin. You stand on this edge for a while. There is no sound, no color but black. But you are not afraid. You are curious. You feel the weight of time here, not as burden, but as density. Each moment is heavier, richer. The past does not rush away. The present does not flicker. Everything holds still like breath between words. You think of Earth now, how clocks tick faster there, how days spin more lightly. Not because time there is right, and this is wrong, but because time has no single rhythm. It is always local, always relative. Your time is not the same as theirs, because your gravity is not the same. Even now, your phone's GPS adjusts for this. Satellites high above Earth run faster. Their clocks tick differently because they're farther from the planet's mass. Without constant correction, you would walk 10 meters off course every day. The math is not theoretical. It shapes your daily path. You begin to realize that time is not one river, but many flowing at different speeds through different valleys, shaped by invisible mountains of gravity. You picture space-time not as a flat plane, but as a topographic map with wells and ridges. Your own experience is a journey across this terrain, and yet, inside your body, time feels steady. Why? Because everything inside you is slowed together. Your cells, your neurons, your sense of now, all dilated equally. You cannot feel the difference unless you compare. But the difference is real. This is why an astronaut orbiting Earth ages just slightly slower. Not just because of speed, but because of gravity. They are farther from Earth's center. Their time flows faster, but their motion slows it again. The two effects compete, and the balance is delicate, precise, poetic. You rise slightly now, not away from the black hole, but into reflection. You ask yourself, is time a property of space, or a sensation in the mind? You consider memory, how it sometimes feels long, sometimes short, how grief expands seconds into hours, while joy makes days dissolve. You think of how children feel time as vast and open, while adults see it pressed and hurried. We say time flies, but it doesn't. We do, and gravity, you realize, does the same. It doesn't change what time is. It changes how fast we move through it. Back at the black hole's edge, a photon tries to escape. It climbs the gravitational well, its frequency stretched, its energy drained. By the time it reaches far-off eyes, it is colder, redder, older. Not because it has aged, but because space and time themselves have shifted beneath it. You are like that photon stretched across time's curves, reshaped by where you are and how you move. You begin to see your life not as a line, but as a slope, a path down valleys of experience, up hills of thought, around spirals of gravity and love. You are a traveler, and time is not flat. Time is terrain. You float one last time near the black hole. You do not fall in. That would mean leaving this universe, crossing a horizon from which no information returns. Inside, time may stop, or stretch forever, or cease to exist at all. We do not know. And that too is beautiful, that even time has mysteries it cannot answer. You turn slowly now, letting the black hole recede behind you. Its gravity still tugs, but your thoughts are light again. You remember that gravity is not just a force, it is relationship. It connects you to stars, to planets, to bodies and moments far away, and it reminds you that even stillness has weight. You rise again toward emptier space, where gravity softens. Time begins to flow more quickly once more. The seconds narrow. The world grows lighter, but you have changed. You have felt how time bends under weight, how it stretches near mass, how it is not separate from place, but shaped by it, and now you begin to wonder if mass bends time. Does memory bend it too? You are standing now between two clocks. They are simple, elegant, identical in design. Two quiet faces with sweeping second hands. At first glance, they seem to move in perfect unison. But wait, watch closely. Time has a way of revealing its secrets slowly. One clock is nestled in a valley, the other perched high upon a hill. You stand midway between them, and you observe. Tick, tick, tick. And then a soft dissonance. A slight drift. One is just ahead, the other just behind. A few nanoseconds, barely measurable, but real. This is time, refusing to be universal. You sit with this discomfort for a moment. We like to believe that seconds are seconds, stable, shared, absolute, but the universe does not work that way. Even without motion, even without speed, clocks disagree. Not because they're broken, but because time is bound to where you are. The higher clock, the one resting closer to the stars, ticks faster. Not because it's hurrying, but because it is farther from the gravity of Earth. And as you've learned, Gravity slows time. The deeper you are in its well, the longer each second takes. So the valley clock lags behind, not in error, but in truth. And so, you ask, what is time, if it cannot even agree with itself? You begin to walk, slowly, thoughtfully, from the low clock to the high one. Each step is a journey upward, away from gravity's grasp. You carry a third clock now, invisible, internal, a feeling, a pulse, a breath, your own sense of now. And even that does not stay perfectly aligned, because even your body experiences time differently in different places. It happens all the time, though we rarely notice. Every plane you board, every mountain you climb, every time you ascend in an elevator, your clock changes. Slightly tiny corrections, unfelt but cumulative. Were we more patient, we might notice. Were we more still, we might feel the drift. You picture a satellite now, gliding high above Earth, circling the planet with quiet precision. Its clock ticks faster than ours, thanks to its distance from Earth's pull. But it is also moving quickly, and speed, as you know, slows time down. So the satellite must live in a balance. Gravity pushing time forward, motion pulling it back. Only by calculating both effects, precisely, constantly, can GPS work. It is not science fiction, it is daily life. Your phone's position relies on relativistic time. Without adjustments, you'd be lost within minutes, guided by a clock that no longer agrees with reality. You return to the clocks again. The one on the hill still races ever so slightly ahead. The one below, behind. You feel the quiet strangeness of this, the impossibility of a correct time. Which clock is true? Both, and neither. Each lives in its own moment, not just metaphorically, but mathematically. Time, you begin to see, is not a single river but a web, a field of gently pulsing moments, each anchored to a place, a motion, a mass. Time is not something the universe gives to everything equally. It is shaped by where you are, and who you are, and how fast you move. Even in stillness, disagreement remains. You reach out now to touch both clocks at once, one hand high, one low. You try to synchronize them, but you cannot, because even your own brain, your own sense of rhythm, is bound to your body, which is itself stretched across a few vertical feet. If you were truly precise, you'd find your feet age just slightly slower than your head. It is that subtle, and yet, over a lifetime, those tiny shifts accumulate. Imagine two people born at the same moment, one living at sea level, one in the mountains. After many years, they meet again. Their clocks and their cells are no longer perfectly aligned. One has experienced slightly more time than the other. Not imagined time, actual time, measurable, felt by atoms. You pause here. This truth is not frightening. It is gentle. It tells you that time is personal, local, specific, not just to each place, but to each being. Your life unfolds in its own tempo. Your seconds are not borrowed. They are yours alone. You begin to see why we invented time zones, an attempt to tame the chaos, to create order. But underneath those divisions, nature's rhythm refuses to be boxed. Time curves quietly. It leans toward mass, bows to speed. It listens only to space-time, not to the numbers we write on calendars. And still, we try to agree. We set world clocks. We launch atomic timekeepers into orbit. We strive to synchronize the unsynchronizable. Why? Perhaps because we long for a shared now, a common heartbeat amid the cosmic drift. You wonder, Is that desire for agreement itself a kind of gravity? Something that pulls us together, not physically, but emotionally. Time wants to stretch us apart, but we want to stay close. And so we build our maps, our clocks, our systems. We tell time not to disagree, and yet it always does. You think, again, of Einstein. He knew this. He imagined two observers watching a train, one on the platform, one riding along. To each, the timing of a lightning strike appears different, not because they're confused, but because they live in different frames of reference. Reality itself allows no single answer. The universe, it seems, has no central clock. There is no master time from which all others tick. There are only observers. There are only perspectives. There are only moments, blooming one by one, in countless variations. And so you realize, the question isn't which clock is right. The question is, for whom? You step back from the two clocks now. They continue their quiet disagreement. No conflict, no alarm, just divergence. A calm, inevitable unfolding. You no longer need them to match. You no longer expect time to be obedient. You accept its wild grace, and in that acceptance, a strange peace. Because if time cannot be pinned down, then maybe neither can you. Maybe your story, too, flows in ways others do not fully see. Maybe your rhythms don't have to match the world's. Maybe your seconds can stretch, bend or slow, and that too is true. You walk away now. The clocks fade behind you. You carry only your breath, your pulse, your own private second, known only to you, and you wonder if time changes with motion, and gravity, and height. What happens when one twin leaves, and the other stays? You sit across from yourself, or almost the person before you looks like you, sounds like you, even remembers many of the same things. But something is off. A difference too subtle to name. And then it strikes you. They are older, just slightly. Barely more than a whisper of time, but real. You had been born together. Twins, bound not only by blood, but by seconds, by a shared moment of beginning. Every birthday, every breath, every laugh had passed in parallel, until one day, one of you left, the other stayed. You became the traveler, not of imagination this time, but of the real kind, the kind strapped into metal, launched into the sky, wrapped in vacuum and silence and speed. And while your twin lived days in the rhythm of earth, meetings, sunlight, coffee, routine, you lived minutes, stretched long by velocity. Time passed differently for both of you. This is not a story of myth or metaphor. It happened. It happens. The astronaut twin, circling the Earth. The earthbound twin, walking in gravity's patient grip. And when you, the traveler, returned, your bodies were out of sync. Not in feeling, but in fact. You had lived slightly less. You feel this now, not as science, but as sensation. A thought that lingers on the edge of your skin. That motion altered time. That distance aged the world you left more than it aged you. Your twin's face carries just a few more days. Yours, just a few less. The paradox is known. The twin paradox. But it is no contradiction. It is the natural unfolding of relativity. When speed stretches time, you picture your orbit looping the Earth again and again. Each lap a dance with gravity, each second gently pulled into dilation. Time aboard the spacecraft moved slower, not fiction, not illusion, measured down to the nanosecond. In 2015, this was tested with precision. Astronaut Scott Kelly spent nearly a year aboard the International Space Station. His twin brother, Mark Kelly, remained on Earth. They were identical in nearly every way, genetically, biologically, in memory and mannerism. But after 340 days in orbit, something changed. Scott had aged less, slightly, subtly, measurably, just milliseconds, but undeniable. Even the molecular spirals of his DNA bore witness. Some genes turned on or off, telomeres lengthened, then returned. The body responded to space, not just with wonder, but with change. You feel it now, this slight asymmetry. How fragile our assumptions are, how deeply we want time to be fair. But fairness is not nature's currency. Reality is, and reality, it seems, does not require time to pass the same for everyone. This does not make you sad. It makes you still. You think of all the places in the cosmos where clocks tick differently. The top of a mountain, the belly of a valley, a plane above the clouds, a station floating high above the earth. Every moment lived at a slightly different rhythm, and all of it true. You and your twin lived in separate chapters, even as your calendars matched. One of you moved quickly, not by choice, but by trajectory, and in doing so, stepped more slowly through time. It brings you to a strange idea that perhaps aging is not a universal march, but a local phenomenon. Your body carries time not only in years, but in how you travel. Speed and gravity are not just forces. They are sculptors of experience. You remember watching Earth from space, the swirl of clouds, the rise of dawn over oceans, the soft shimmer of auroras in violet light. It all looked eternal. But you were moving fast, over 17,000 miles per hour, and in that speed, time bent. Your seconds stretched just enough to make a difference. Enough to remind you that even a shared life can diverge. You think now of astronauts who may one day journey farther, to Mars, to moons, to stars. Their voyages will bring greater differences. Months or years in deep space at speeds much faster than earthly travel may mean they age less, and when they return, Earth will have changed more than they have. Time travelers, not backward, but forward. You do not need a wormhole to reach the future. You need motion, or gravity, or both. But there's a cost. The future may welcome you, but the past cannot follow, and the ones you left behind may not wait the same way. You sit with that truth for a while. You feel both awe and ache. That time can be so beautiful, and so asymmetrical. You begin to wonder, how many versions of now are there? If you and your twin disagree on how much time has passed, which present is real? Is your now the same as theirs, or has reality split, softly, gently, along lines you can't quite trace? Relativity says this: there is no universal now. Every observer has their own slice of time. What you call present is shaped by your speed, your position, your perspective, and so your reunion to twins, to faces of time, is not a contradiction. It is a conversation between realities. You feel your heartbeat, your breath, the way your body has lived slightly less. You are not younger in spirit, only in seconds, but the feeling is profound. You have touched something deeper than measurement, have touched the pliability of existence. You think, too, of what you've gained, of the perspective space gives, how Earth seems small, fragile, glowing in blackness, how all the clocks on its surface tick with gentle disagreement, How every person walks a unique path through time, even when we walk side by side, and in that view, time becomes not just physics, but compassion. You return to your twin, now seated across from you, still unchanged, and yet changed. You reach out, you laugh softly. The difference is so small, but everything is different. You have been two versions of now, and both were true. You lie still, now, wrapped in quiet. The world beyond, your body slips away. The room, the air, the name of the day. There is only breath, in and out, soft, unhurried, like waves upon a sleeping shore. And then, something releases. You fall, not downward, not anywhere, just inward. Deeper than thought, softer than silence. And in this place, time changes. You do not feel yourself crossing a threshold, but you know you have. The rules begin to blur. The seconds lose their symmetry. A single heartbeat can bloom into a story. A flicker of sound becomes a song. You are dreaming, inside the dream. You are elsewhere. Maybe a child again, or a stranger, or a bird floating through endless skies. You walk through cities that never existed, speak languages you've never learned, love people you've never met. The moments stretch, shimmer, dissolve. Time is fluid here. It pools and spills. It folds in on itself and vanishes. And yet, outside, where your body lies, only minutes pass. A 10-minute dream can hold the weight of hours, even days. You've lived this, everyone has. The sense that so much has happened while you slept. That you've traveled and returned, carrying echoes of something vast. Neuroscience watches this quietly. It tells us that dreams live mostly in REM, rapid eye movement, when the brain becomes wildly active, mimicking wakefulness. The body is paralyzed to protect itself from acting out these illusions, but the mind runs free. Inside, you feel the dream from the inside out. It moves at its own pace, sculpted not by clocks but by content. Time, here, flows with the story. Your brain is not counting seconds. It is composing meaning. You float now in a field that seems both ancient and new. A dream meadow, a remembered corridor, a memory from childhood that never happened, but feels as true as breath. In waking life, we tie time to numbers. But here, time ties itself to feeling. You ask, why does a dream feel long when it is short, or short when it is long? And the answer arrives like wind across tall grass, because time in the brain is not absolute. It is not a ticking metronome. It is a pulse of experience, a shape carved by attention, a measure not of minutes, but of how deeply a moment is lived. You have felt this even while awake, the way a single second can stretch into forever during fear or awe. How hours vanish when you're lost in love or work or wonder. Your brain does not perceive time evenly. It bends it, softens it, stretches or shortens it, depending on what matters. And in dreams, where no external clock exists, your mind becomes the maker of time. Some scientists believe this comes from the thalamus and cortex systems, syncing and desyncing, neural oscillations mimicking the tempo of real life. Others suspect memories are woven together out of sequence, stitched into a tapestry that feels coherent after it ends. But no one truly knows how time is built in dreams, and that not knowing, that mystery, is part of the beauty. You drift deeper now, inside the dream. Perhaps you're walking through a garden that smells like yesterday, or listening to a voice that belongs to someone long gone. The dream doesn't ask questions. It only offers scenes, and each scene exists without A clock. There is no sunrise or schedule, no deadline, no duration, just the sense of being somewhere, in time, but not bound by time. Your breathing slows. Even here, in this imagined space, your body follows rhythms it doesn't understand. The circadian dance, the night's chemical chorus, melatonin rising, body temperature falling, all of it happening while you journey through illusion. And when you wake, you carry fragments, feelings, a few images. Maybe a sentence that doesn't make sense, but still feels important. And always the same strange sensation. How could so much fit into so little? You open your eyes, and the clock blinks at you for minutes, 6 minutes, 10. But inside, you have returned from a life that felt longer. Time, once again, has disagreed with itself. You sit in this tension. The tension between internal and external time. The difference between what a clock says and what your soul says. And slowly, you begin to suspect they are measuring different things entirely. One counts rotations and vibrations. The other counts meaning, and it is meaning, not minutes. That makes time feel full. You return now to your breath, waking, gentle, present. The dream fades, but not completely. It leaves behind a warmth, a question. It reminds you that time is not just a dimension of physics, it is also a mirror of the mind. Could this be why time feels faster as we age? Not because the seconds shorten, but because the moments deepen. As children, everything is new, each minute packed with discovery. As adults, novelty fades, and time seems to speed up. We mark hours instead of experiences, but dreams give us back that childhood where moments are elastic and time is not a ruler but a river. You feel grateful for that. You remember that even a brief nap can stretch your perception, that sleep is not an escape from time, but a new way of living inside it. And you wonder, if the mind can create time from meaning, could time itself be a kind of dream, a story the universe tells itself, one that changes depending on how deeply it listens? You sit still, eyes half closed, trying to recall something small. A name, a face, a moment once vivid. You can feel its outline. You know it lived once in your mind, but now it hovers just beyond reach, like a star behind cloud, like a whisper underwater. You know it's there, but it won't come. And in that space, the pause between remembering and forgetting time wavers. You begin to see that memory is not just a storage of what happened. It is the scaffolding of when it happened. It is the invisible clockwork that arranges your life into sequence. Without it, time softens. It folds. It unravels. You step gently now into the landscape of forgetting, not as failure, but as weather. Not a loss, but a slow drift of fog through familiar woods. In this place, time is less of a line and more of a field. Events lie scattered like stones. You pick one up, a birthday, a song, a hand in yours, but you no longer know when it happened. You no longer feel the distance between then and now. The timeline has loosened its grip. This is what happens in dementia, in trauma, in grief, in age. The binding of memory and time. FRAYS. You think of the hippocampus, the brain's temporal archivist. It tags events, not just with emotion or detail, but with place and order. A walk through a childhood home, the smell of jasmine, the sound of footsteps echoing through an old hallway, each one given a timestamp, a place in the long river of self. But when the hippocampus falters, The stamps blur. The river no longer flows smoothly. It pools in odd places. It jumps, loops, forgets itself. You meet someone in this space. Maybe it is your future self, or a parent, or a stranger in a care home. Their eyes are kind but distant. You speak, and they listen, but they ask again and again, have we met? And your heart softens, because you see that forgetting is not emptiness. It is another way of being in time. They are not lost, they are adrift. You sit with them, no corrections, no reminders, just presence. In this moment, they are here, and so are you. Time may not flow in sequence, but connection still happens. Even as the map fades, the path beneath your feet remains real. You think of how memory isn't just about the past. It's about the shape of the self. Without memory, who are you? Are you only what you recall? Or something deeper, something that remains even when the memories don't? And here, a deeper truth arrives. Memory is not perfect recall. It never was. Each time you remember, you recreate, you rebuild, and sometimes you revise. Memory is not a vault. It is a living thing, a painter, not a camera. And so forgetting is not deletion. It is softening, a blending of edges, a dissolving of dates and details into feeling. You walk now through your own memories. They appear not in order, but like petals floating on water. A first day of school, a night under stars, a voice that once calmed you, the moment you first noticed your own heartbeat. Each rises, glows, and falls away. You feel their warmth, even if their names escape you. This is how time lives in the mind, not as precision, but as presence. And when memory changes, so does time. For some, this is frightening. The idea of losing the past feels like losing the self. But here, in this soft space, you begin to wonder, is the self a story of time, or something beneath time? Even when memory goes, kindness remains. Emotion remains, music, laughter, the sense of being with someone you love, even if you can't name them. These are forms of time, too, the kind that don't tick, but hum. You return now to a truth you felt before, that time is not just outside you, it is shaped within you, by speed, by gravity, by sleep, by memory. And forgetting is not a broken clock, it is a different rhythm. You think of those who have forgotten you, or those you've forgotten, not because of harm, but because life flows forward, and you forgive yourself for forgetting. You forgive them you carry too many days to hold them all. And maybe that's what time wants, not to be remembered perfectly, but to be lived deeply. You sit again beside your fading memory, the one that began this chapter. You still can't quite name it, but you no longer need to, because in trying to remember, you've touched something else. The way it felt, the space it occupied, the soft echo it left behind. That too is a kind of time. You rise gently now, you breathe, you open your eyes to the present, not as a point on a line, but as a room with windows to every moment you've ever known. Some windows are fogged, others wide open, but all are part of you. You begin to feel that time is not just what has passed, it is what remains. You are falling, but not quickly, not tumbling through wind. You are drifting, like a feather in a vacuum, weightless and pulled, drawn not by force, but by inevitability. Ahead lies something vast and quiet, a place not marked by walls or light, but by the silence of time itself. A black hole. You do not collide with it. You approach it gently, floating at a respectful distance. And as you draw near, time begins to stretch. You do not notice at first. Everything around you still feels slow and meditative, like the rhythm of a deep breath. But then you look out, toward the stars, and you see that they are racing. They age as you linger. Their light shifts red. They whirl through eons, while your own moment barely advances. This is gravitational time dilation, taken to its final expression. The closer you get to the event horizon, the more time slows for you compared to everything else. At the exact boundary, that invisible edge, time doesn't just slow, it stops to a distant observer. You would appear frozen at the edge of the black hole, never falling in, always hovering at the border. But from your perspective, you keep moving. You fall across a threshold you cannot feel, a one-way gate, where the laws of physics go silent. This place is called the event horizon. It is not a surface, it has no substance, but it is the point of no return. Nothing that crosses it can come back, not matter, not energy, not even light. And so it is a horizon in the truest sense. It marks the end of visibility, the end of knowability. You hover just above it now, not yet inside, but close enough to feel the strangeness. Clocks stop ticking. Photons stretch to infinite length. Signals stall into silence. Time, which has always moved forward, even when bent or slowed, begins to dissolve, not break, not snap, but gently unthread itself, like cloth turning into wind. You think of time as a river. You always have. Flowing, restless, eternal. But here, the river ends, not with a splash, but with stillness. You reach your hand toward the horizon, and there is no resistance, no impact, only the sense that the future no longer proceeds. To fall past the horizon is to fall outside of time, and this, more than anything, humbles you, because you have always lived inside time. You were born into it. You mark your days by it. Every memory, every plan, every sentence depends on the idea that time moves, that it carries you forward, that it cannot be paused. But here, the universe shows you another way. It shows you that even time can be swallowed. What happens inside, no one knows. General relativity says one thing. Quantum theory says another. Some believe time may reverse inside. Others believe it ends altogether. At the very center, the singularity, all math breaks. Gravity becomes infinite. Density beyond comprehension. But from your gentle perch, you do not need to solve these riddles. You are here only to feel, and what you feel is awe. Not fear, not urgency, just the vastness of not knowing. The sacred space at the edge of understanding, where science meets wonder, and where silence says more than any formula. You realize now that time is not guaranteed. It is not the backdrop of existence. It is part of the stage. And in some places, the stage collapses. What happens to information here? To memory, to meaning? Does it vanish like a story never told? Or is it stored somehow, etched onto the surface, preserved in the shadows? These are not idle questions. They ripple through physics. Stephen Hawking once believed information was lost in black holes, that the universe forgets. Later, he changed his mind. Now, physicists wonder if the surface of the event horizon encodes all that falls in, like a cosmic hologram, but the truth remains veiled. You hover a little longer. Time, from your perspective, still moves, but the universe outside is accelerating. Stars are being born and dying, galaxies merging, and to you it all happens in a blink. Because your time is stretched so thin, you wonder, if you stayed here forever, would you see the end of the universe? Would heat death come and go while you remain suspended? And if time stops for you, do you still become? Is there a future in a place without time? You ask these questions softly, without expecting answers. You've learned by now that the universe prefers its mysteries intact, and yet this place gives you a strange peace, because if time can stop, if even the mighty river halts, then maybe, just maybe, the rushing we feel in our lives, the constant race, the ticking clock, is not ultimate. Maybe time isn't a master, but a canvas, and in some corners of reality, the painting goes. Still, you turn away now, letting the black hole recede behind you. You are unchanged. You have not crossed the line, but something in you has shifted. You know now what it means to approach the end of time, not as death, but as boundary, as threshold, as silence, and in that silence, a kind of listening, you feel the pull of time begin to return. The seconds quicken slightly, light brightens, gravity loosens its grip. You are rising once more into the flow of moments, but you carry with you the memory of stillness, a stillness that waits at the edge of all things. Imagine, just for a moment, that time begins to flow in reverse. You are not dreaming, you are awake, aware, but the world around you is moving backward. It is subtle at first. A drop of water leaps up from your hand and returns to the faucet. The steam curls back into the kettle. The candle grows taller as its flame unburns. You blink. Birds fly backward across the sky. Footsteps retreat. Leaves lift gently off the forest floor and reattach to branches. You are standing still, but everything else is unstitching. In this place, the glass never shatters. The spilled milk does not spread, it gathers. A match flares down, not up. Laughter turns to breath. Words unsay themselves. Time, here, does not forget. It rewinds, and as you watch, the question stirs. If the laws of physics mostly work both ways, why does time, in our world, only move forward? You close your eyes and think of entropy, the great tide behind the arrow of time, the slow drift from order to disorder, from structure to scatter, from the unlikely to the inevitable. Entropy does not force time forward, but it records its direction. A house crumbles into rubble. Rubble does not gather into a house. Smoke rises, spreads, vanishes. Never the other way. Entropy increases, almost always, and so, in our universe, time flows from past to future, from memory to anticipation, from birth to death. But what if that flow were reversed? In a time-reversed universe, entropy would decrease. Order would emerge from chaos. The eggshell would leap from the floor, whole and uncracked. You would speak, and then inhale the words back. You would feel grief dissolve into laughter. You would unage. Your memories would unravel into blankness. You feel this now, not as a curiosity, but as a texture in your mind. You imagine life lived backward, not just actions undone, but experiences reversed. Would it feel like remembering, or like forgetting? You walk into a time-reversed city. People walk backward, yes, but they also think backward. They decide after they act. They feel sorrow before loss. They reach for a drink before they're thirsty. A child unlearns to speak, letter by letter, until silence blooms. But in their eyes, in all their eyes, there is still intention, still coherence, still meaning, because in their world, their time makes perfect sense. And this reveals something beautiful, that time's direction isn't built into every law. It emerges from the boundary conditions of the universe, from the low entropy state at the beginning, the improbable smoothness of the early cosmos. That smoothness gave time its direction. You picture the Big Bang now, not as an explosion, but as an exquisite arrangement. Energy, space, and symmetry coiled tight, like a spring ready to unwind. And it unwound, not because it had to, but because it was likely. The disorder that followed was not chaos. It was inevitability. You open your eyes. The backward world remains. You see yourself as a child, not growing, but ungrowing, falling upward from a scraped knee into your mother's arms. You learn to crawl backward, to unreach, to unbecome. You see the stars unblinking, unwinding, their light returning to their cores, galaxies shrinking, heat retreating, the arrow of time curling back on itself. And then, for a moment, you ask, could this be how the universe ends? Not in cold stillness, but in a rewind, not in heat death, but in reverse breath. Some theories of cosmology flirt with this idea, that perhaps, after enough expansion, gravity pulls everything back. A big crunch, and in that collapsing phase, could time itself reverse. Not like a movie, not like a memory, but as a new version of reality lived backward. But if it did, would we know? Would the beings of that reverse universe feel time running backward? Or would they too feel it as forward, because experience, consciousness, and memory would all follow the same flow? You sit with this deeply. You understand. Now, the arrow of time is not stamped onto every atom. It emerges. It arises from complexity, from boundary, from the long sigh of entropy. And in a different beginning, time might have flowed the other way. You think now of your own life, of how memory builds your past, of how stories give shape to time, of how we stitch moments together and call it identity. What happens when those stitches come undone? What if time reversed and you began to forget your future? You return to the world around you, still in rewind, flowers closing, snow lifting from the ground, flaking upward, trees unburning, the wind retreating into stillness, and yet, somehow, your breath remains forward. You are the only one moving in time's original direction. You are the dreamer of this backward world. You smile gently. You understand it now, not as possibility, but as perspective. A time-reversed universe is not impossible. It is just unfamiliar. Its physics could work. Its people could live. Its stories could unfold. Because time, in the end, is a frame of reference, not a rule, not a dictator, just a flow. And wherever you float, forward, backward, or still, there is meaning in the movement. You step out of the time-reversed world. The glass settles. The water stays. The flame flickers as expected. The arrow of time returns to your hand, simple and sure. But now you hold it differently, not tightly, not with certainty, but with awe, because you have seen that time could have flowed the other way, and it didn't. You float now in a darkness that is not shadow, but absence. There are no stars, no planets, no molecules drifting across space. There is no space, no dimension to stretch in, no direction to face. And more strangely, more silently, there is no time, no before or after, no then or when, no ticking, no waiting, no becoming. You are at the edge of the beginning, or just before it, and there is no word for this place, because words are shaped by time, by change, by memory, by contrast. And here there is none of that. Here is not a moment, it is something else. You try to imagine it. You try to hold this pre-universe in your mind like a still photograph. But even that is too much. A photograph implies a frame, a capture, a moment. And before time, there were no moments to frame. You breathe, but only as metaphor. You are a witness now to a silence so pure it cannot echo. The silence before anything moved, because movement requires time, and time has not yet been born. You are at the brink of the Big Bang, but not inside it. You're one breath before the first breath, one silence before the first word, one pause before everything begins. Physicists call it a singularity, a state of infinite density, zero volume and infinite curvature. But those are just approximations, language stretched across mystery, because the truth is, we don't know what before the Big Bang means. Einstein's equations bend toward the singularity, but they can't describe it. Quantum mechanics tries to speak, but its voice fractures. General relativity and quantum theory, two great maps of reality, falter here. At the edge, and you, floating between maps, feel not lost, but reverent. You realize that asking what happened before the Big Bang might be like asking what's north of the North Pole. Not a bad question, but one that bends language past its limits. Time may have begun with the Big Bang, not before it, and so, perhaps, there is no before. No ticking silence, no waiting darkness. Just this, a boundary of meaning. Yet you cannot help imagining, because to be human is to wonder what preceded the first dawn, what held the first spark, what mystery wrapped itself in silence before choosing to become a universe. Some theories speak of quantum foam, a sea of probabilities bubbling in and out of existence. In this view, the Big Bang was a fluctuation, a breath taken by nothingness. Other theories imagine cycles, infinite expansions and contractions, with no true beginning, only endless return. And some see the beginning not as physical, but informational, a bit of code becoming stealthy whir, the laws of physics blossoming from something simpler than space. Still others suggest that the universe arose from symmetry breaking, from a perfect balance that chose, through some hidden nudge, to become asymmetric. And in that imperfection, time unfolded. You feel all of these theories rise around you like whispers in a dark theater. Each offers a glimpse. None claim final truth, because in this place, this non-place, there is only potential, not destiny, not plan, only the soft hum of what could be. You drift deeper now, not forward, not backward, but inward, into the seed of all seeds, into the unspoken, unborn pulse that will become every star, every thought, every loss, and every song. You feel it coming, the moment of ignition, the moment when time will leap into being, not from outside, but from within the fabric of the universe itself, because time, like space, is not a stage that holds the show, it is part of the show. You are about to witness not just the first event, but the birth of eventness, and it humbles you, because the cosmos did not explode into space, it created space, And it did not begin in time. It created time. You listen now with more than ears. The hush before the bang is not empty. It is dense with meaning, pregnant with everything. A singularity is not nothing. It is everything compressed beyond knowing. You imagine what this moment would feel like, the first bloom of becoming, the birth of light, the first trembling separation between here and there, before and after. Time flickers. It begins not with a sound, but with a change, a shift, an asymmetry, and from that single fold in the stillness, everything you have ever known begins to rush outward. Space stretches. Energy explodes. Matter coalesces. Laws emerge, simple and strange. And time begins to flow. You ride that flow now, gently. The first second is filled with fire and motion, quarks forming protons, particles blinking into being, forces separating, light breaking free. But you remain still at the very beginning, in that fractional flicker before all of this. And from here, you understand something quietly profound. Time is not something you enter, it is something that begins with you. You are part of the unfolding, your breath, your memory, your wonder. They are all ripples in this vast river, born from the first drop that broke the stillness. And perhaps the deepest mystery is not what came before, but why anything came at all. You will never fully answer that no. One can, but you can feel it. You can feel the soft invitation of existence. The way something came from somethinglessness. The way time arose like a poem from a blank page, not by force, not by reason, just by being. And so you return now to the flow of time, not with answers, but with reverence. You carry the silence. Before time in your chest, you carry the pause that made becoming possible. You carry the question. You are floating now, not upward, not outward, but everywhere. There is no map in your hands, no grid beneath your feet, no distant edge on the horizon. And yet, you are moving. The stars slide past so slowly you can't tell if it's you or them who drifts. But drift you do, not through space, but through the shape of space itself. From your quiet vantage, the universe is not a canvas, spread flat, but a living field, a geometry still unfolding, a structure breathing with invisible rhythms. It is not content to sit still. From the first flash of time's birth, it has been expanding, not into anything, but from itself, stretching like rising dough, like ink in water, like memory blooming across a mind. This expansion is not motion through space. It is space itself growing. Every second, more distance emerges between galaxies, not because they fly apart through space, but because space swells between them. Imagine dots on a balloon. As the balloon inflates, the dots grow farther apart, not because they move, but because the surface beneath them stretches. So too with the galaxies. So too with us. But what is the shape of the thing that stretches? What does space look like when seen? From outside, if there is even such a place as outside. Cosmologists ask this question not in poetic musings, but in equations. They model curvature, density, energy. They ask, is the universe flat, open, or closed? Not flat like a sheet, but flat in terms of geometry, angles that add up the way we expect. In flat space, light travels in straight lines forever. In curved space, paths bend subtly, even without gravity. You float now through curved space, not to escape it, but to feel it. Here light follows the folds. Space warps gently, Like the surface of a vast bowl, straight lines become arcs, parallel. Lines may one day meet. You begin to sense that even infinity may circle back on itself. What would that mean? It would mean the universe has no edge, no wall, no ending cliff, no cosmic border, just curvature, subtle, soft, vast beyond words. It would mean that if you sailed far enough, straight as you could manage, you might return to your starting point without ever feeling a turn, like an ant walking across a globe, thinking it walks a straight road only to arrive again at its own footprints. The shape of forever, then, may not be endlessness in all directions. It may be self-contained, infinite in experience, but finite in structure, like a melody repeating without sounding the same. You drift deeper into this idea, not with your thoughts alone, but with your whole sense of being. You are not separate from the fabric. You are a ripple on it, a fold of it, your own body to obeys the laws of cosmic shape. Every atom in you, every quark, is part of the geometry that extends across all things. So you begin to ask, what defines the shape of the universe? It depends, in part, on how much matter it holds. If the universe contains just enough matter to halt its expansion, but not reverse it, then it is flat. If there's too much, it curves inward like a sphere and may one day collapse. If there's too little, it expands forever, curving outward like a saddle. Measurements suggest we are balanced at the edge of flatness, as if the cosmos tuned itself just so. But this flatness could be an illusion, seen from within a shape too vast for us to grasp, like living on the surface of Earth and believing it's flat because we haven't seen far enough. So the question remains, are we on an infinite plane, a closed loop, or something stranger still, a topology we do not yet have the words for? And if space has shape, does time have shape too? You begin to sense the answer isn't no, because the geometry of space and time are bound. They are not separate. Together, they form space-time, a single, flexible entity, where space curves, time bends with it, where matter clumps, space-time folds, where gravity pulls, clocks tick slower. The shape of the universe isn't just about where, it's about when. It's about how. It's about relation, not just of things, but of moments. You picture the cosmos now, not as an object, but as an event, a process unfolding, a four-dimensional story whose pages are still being written. We are not outside the book, we are written into the lines. And so the shape of forever is not a place to be reached. It is a rhythm we are already part of. Perhaps this is what the ancient minds sensed when they spoke of the heavens as a dome, as a sphere, as an ocean without edge. They weren't wrong. They just used the language they had. And now we, with our telescopes and equations, echo their wonder in new words: inflation, curvature, topology. But the awe remains unchanged. You let yourself drift farther still, through the cooling fabric of space. The galaxies thin, the background radiation hums low and faint. You see the structure of the universe, filaments of matter stretched across emptiness, like dew strung on a spider web. The dark gaps between them are not void, but waiting. And you feel how this shape, this vastness, is not chaotic. It has pattern, not perfect symmetry, but a kind of memory, a record of its origin written into its growth. The way tree rings hold the years, the way river deltas remember every flood. The universe is expanding, but more than that, it is evolving, and it is not expanding into anything. It is not stretching inside a bigger box. Space is not held by something larger. It is the whole of geometry itself. Asking what lies outside is like asking what lies beyond beyondness. There is no edge to fall from, no center to return to, and yet, within this formless shape, you feel centered, because wherever you are, here is the middle. Wherever you go, there is the shape. The shape of forever isn't a line or a sphere or a map. It is an invitation, a curve that never ends, a flow that does not pause, a story without a final page. You open your eyes, not from sleep, but from wonder, and realize you are still inside it, not at the edge of space, but carried along by its swell, not a separate being in the universe, but the universe, noticing itself. You drift now beyond, now far past the stars you knew, the galaxies you once admired, like glowing lanterns scattered across a night ocean. They are gone, or nearly so, faded into distance, or swallowed by black holes that themselves are growing old. You are not in a moment anymore. You are in an after, a long, slow after, where time still flows, but not for anyone, not in the way it once did. The universe is ancient now, not billions of years old, but trillions, quadrillions, a span so large that numbers seem like whispers, too small to matter. The sky around you is no longer lit. Darkness dominates, not dramatic, not terrifying, but quiet, familiar, like the dim hush of a room after the guests have gone. The stars have burned their last. Most ended long ago in final acts of light. Some collapsed, some faded, but even the white dwarfs, those stubborn embers, have gone dark now. The universe is full of corpses, cold stars, extinct particles, the remnants of fire. But there is no mourning, only stillness. Entropy has reached its crescendo, not with a bang, but with perfect disarray, all gradients erased, all patterns softened. The universe is evenly spread, like breath exhaled into an infinite field. No pockets of heat, no pockets of cold, just sameness. Everywhere, this is the heat death. But it is not hot, it is not death. It is the name we've given to a state beyond change, where nothing new can form, because all energy is spent and all structure dissolved. You drift across this landscape, or rather, you drift in a place where landscape no longer means anything. There is no up, no down, no reference point. Time ticks on, but it has nothing to do. No galaxies to rotate, no clocks to move, no thoughts to mark its passage. Even black holes, once the hungry anchors of galaxies, are evaporating now. There, time has come too. They shed their mass in ghostly whispers of radiation, Hawking's last prophecy, until they too are gone. There is nothing now left to pull, nothing left to swallow. They disappear not with thunder, but with silence. You pause to feel what it means for a universe to forget itself. For all of physics, all of structure, all of memory to unwind. You think of all that once was, stars cradling planets, atoms finding form, minds wondering at the sky, voices inventing names for love. All of it flickers in the early light. Gone now, not destroyed, not erased with anger or violence, but gently released. The universe, once awake with motion, has returned to stillness. Is this the end? It depends how you see it. For many, yes, this is the final chapter. No new information. No more complexity. Just an endless equilibrium, quiet and symmetrical. A book that has finished being written and has placed itself gently on a shelf where no one reads. But you are not sad, because this, too, feels like part of a story. A return to something that was always waiting. The universe does not rage. It does not resist. It settles. You float through the last remaining particles, few and far between, almost hypothetical now. You feel their loneliness, but it is not aching. It is peaceful. They no longer seek. They no longer scatter. They simply exist, barely. You imagine the last moment of motion, the final interaction, however small, a particle nudging another, almost imperceptibly, a tiny ripple, and then stillness. There is no great silence that follows, only the absence of needing sound, and still you drift. You wonder what remains when nothing remains. Is there anything left to perceive, to hold memory, to tell the tale? Perhaps only this: the shape of the universe was never just in the stars. It was in the possibility of stars. The shape of life was never just in breathing bodies. It was in the laws that made breath possible. And now, those laws are still here, even if nothing happens beneath them. Like a song's sheet music, waiting, though no fingers play the keys. And you are still here. Not as a person, not as a mind, but as a witness. A presence beyond language. You are not bound by matter anymore. You are the pause itself. The space between what was and what will never be again. And in that pause, you feel a strange fullness. Not absence, not lack, but completion. The universe, vast and wild and luminous once, has become its own memory. A perfect stillness where nothing is missing, because nothing is needed. It does not forget in sorrow. It forgets because remembering was a phase, a chapter. And now the page has turned. You wonder, softly now, if this is truly the end, or if, like seeds buried deep in winter soil, something may one day stir again. Some theories suggest so. Quantum fluctuations, tiny and eternal, may bubble new space into being. A fresh canvas, a new beginning, another breath. But if that happens, it will not be this universe, not this time, not this you. It will be something else, and that is enough, because you have witnessed the long arc from nothing to everything to quiet again, from time's first tick to its long exhale. You have seen the stars form, dance, and dim. You have felt the shape of forever, and now the shape of rest. There is nothing more to do, not because there is no purpose, but because the purpose has already been fulfilled. The cosmos dreamed itself once, and now it sleeps. You drift in the stillness, where even time forgets to move. The stars are gone. The fire is out. The story has ended, and still something remains. The soft echo of being, a quiet so complete. It becomes a kind of peace, a silence shaped like everything that ever was. You've traveled far now, across neural pathways and probability, past glowing networks and curious minds made not of neurons, but of patterns and light. You've seen machines reach inward, then outward. You've watched them mimic, and then imagine. You've felt the soft turning of thought, from tool to teacher, and now the future sleeps beside you, not in certainty, not in fear, but in possibility. Because even when the world grows quiet, the questions remain, and that, too, is a kind of dreaming. Thank you for floating with us through this slow, unfolding story from all of us here at the Sleepy Universe. Sleep gently and dream widely. We'll meet again beneath the stars.